The woman in the judge's chair was staring intently at Kevin, and the only word she could think of was, "Impossible!" Wayne Ford, one of the instructors whose students were in the contest, commented to the people around him,
"Mixing ingredients as they float in the air? I didn't think anybody could do that anymore. Where did he learn how to do it?"
The other VIPs in the audience couldn't believe their eyes, and the judge in the high seat was the only one there who understood his technique. To other herbalists, it was like magic. The procedure allowed you to control several medicinal ingredients at the same time while they floated in the steam above the bowl. It was an incredibly advanced skill that took a lot of knowledge and artistry. The advantage was, you could control the temperature more precisely, and it allowed you to prepare a pill very quickly, which was just what Kevin needed to do. The judge had only seen this done once in all her time with the Herbalist Society. After a while, Kevin was able to gather the ingredients little by little until they'd melted into the shape of a pill. Professor Colt, who was standing behind him, was stunned. In fact, everyone there was stupefied by his expertise. It's no exaggeration to say that Kevin was the center of attention at the moment. It was like he was the only competitor in the entire contest. Just as Kevin was gathering the remaining ingredients into the pill, you could see electricity arcing around the bowl. It looked like a Van der Graaf generator. He can do that too? The judge was in awe. Kevin had one surprise after another. The VIPs who were watching this were tempted to rush over and protect Kevin from the static discharges that were arcing out from around the bowl. While they were all in fear for Kevin's safety, he didn't seem to care at all. In fact, he seemed to be enjoying it. Just then, a giant spark jumped out and struck the pill. Kevin's hair stood on end and he looked like some kind of mad scientist, which he kind of was at the moment. Everyone held their breath, wondering if Kevin's pill had been destroyed by the enormous discharge of electricity. But it was still there, and over the next couple of minutes, Kevin let it happen a dozen more times. Professor Colt and everyone else who had been standing nearby retreated to a safe position about 20 feet away. As the electricity jumped to the pill, it also seemed to get absorbed by Kevin's body. This was probably what the Night King had been talking about. Just seconds before the end of the contest, the sparks died down and the vapor above Kevin's bowl dissipated into the air. When the bell rang, Kevin was holding his pill in his open hand. The audience sat there quietly, and not a single one of them was mocking him. The VIPs were also silent. They stared uncertainly at Kevin, unsure as to what to think about what they just witnessed.
"What kind of pills are you refining, sir?"
The host stumbled for a moment and almost called him assistant. Even the arrogant Austin Swift, who had just been in the limelight, couldn't come close to what Kevin was attempting.
"A primal pill."
The judge practically leapt to Kevin's side, staring at the pill in his hand.
"He made a primal pill? How is that even possible?"
Wayne commented loudly. Professor Colt thought she was going to pass out. She couldn't even believe that this was true. Dalton waved his fist excitedly. Even though he didn't know what a primal pill was, it had to be something fantastic to get this kind of reaction from all the experts. "Yes," Kevin replied simply. "This is a primal pill. It can transform whoever takes it." I'm glad nobody was shocked by the final step in its preparation. Kevin joked about the technique he'd used. Just then, the judge snickered. "It's a pity it didn't work. According to our records, the color of the primal pill should be dark blue, but this one is only light blue, so it appears that you didn't complete the process. However, this is enough to prove that you're already very proficient at herbalism. You should do very well as an apothecary." She announced this very loudly so that the entire audience could hear. When they heard her ruling on Kevin's pill, the VIPs looked very relieved. It would have been extremely embarrassing for them and their students if a mere assistant had won the grand prize in the contest. Kevin couldn't believe it. He took a look at the pill in his hand, and then he raised his head and stared at the judge. He knew that he'd made it according to the instructions in his sources. How could he have made a mistake? Professor Colt was looking a little depressed too. After seeing Kevin's concoction, she was sure that he would win first place in this contest. Who knew that something like this was going to happen? Suddenly, somebody laughed, and then the whole crowd broke out into uproarious laughter. I can't believe I was starting to think that Kevin had real talent. What a waste of time for nothing. Sherwin Blair pointed at him and laughed until his stomach hurt.
What a fake,
Doug Butler shouted.
How could Professor Colt have picked Kevin as her assistant? How embarrassing.
While this discussion was going on in the crowd, the judge asked, Is your name Kevin? Yes, it is. Who are you? Kevin was feeling pretty low. Then he thought of something. He knew that he'd made the primal pill correctly. The judge had to be favoring all the VIPs in their schools. Is this how things worked in the herbalism world? In full view of the public, she was willing to play this kind of trick? After dealing with his wife Lily's family for the past few years, Kevin was tired of dealing with liars and cheaters. He had no patience for a crooked judge. My name is Nadia Alexander. I'm the president of the Southern branch of the Herbalist Society. I see you have a lot of talent. Would you like to become one of my students? She asked Kevin very seriously. Her question attracted a lot of attention from the people around them. It was quite an invitation from a very highly ranked expert. They watched enviously to see how Kevin would respond. His answer surprised everyone. Sorry, I'm not interested. I already have a teacher. It was obvious that Kevin had already made up his mind. Why not? Nadia was smiling. She wasn't angry at all, just curious. She looked intensely into Kevin's eyes. Because I'm sure that there's nothing wrong with my pills. Can't you see that I'm qualified to be a master herbalist? Kevin took his pill and put it in his pocket. It sounds like you have a lot of confidence in your abilities, Nadia commented pleasantly. Kevin was a little confused. She seemed like a decent person, so why was she doing something like this? Just then, a loud voice cried out. I will make you pay for what you've done to me! Turning to his right, Kevin saw someone from the VIP section pull out a dagger and run towards him. It was Ariana Titus, the woman who had been eyeing Kevin so venomously earlier in the day. But before Kevin had a chance to react, he saw the metal glint in the sunlight as the dagger's point stopped just an inch below his sternum. The only reason it wasn't plunged right through his belly was that Nadia had stepped in and placed her hand on top of the attacker's wrist and stopped it. Everyone gasped. They knew that it took an incredibly strong person to do what she'd just done. You shouldn't play with knives. Someone may get hurt, Nadia sneered. Then she bent the attacker's wrist, pulled the dagger out of her hand, and tossed it point first into the ground. President Alexander, please get out of my way. This shameless die for what he's done. She stared at Kevin fiercely. After everything the Williams family had told Ariana about Kevin, she couldn't control her anger. She didn't even care that she was doing this right in the middle of a public contest in downtown Chicago. But Ariana, I haven't announced the final results. Don't you have any respect at all for the Herbalist Society? Nadia was doing her best to hide her anger from the crowd, but she was obviously furious with Ariana for interrupting the contest. Ariana shook her head. President Alexander, you may not know it, but Kevin is from the Williams family in New York. 3 years ago, he colluded with outsiders to misappropriate family funds. After being expelled from his own family, he latched onto the Jones family in Chicago and started draining their funds, too. Then, not too long ago, he had a big fight at his cousin Monty Aspinwall's wedding. His cousin's marriage ended in failure because of it. Then he got a bunch of criminals to ruin the Williams family's business. She continued to rail against Kevin. The worst thing is that he went to his family's mansion in New York with his gangsters and fought with his own grandfather, injuring a lot of his own family members in the process. What a joke!
Kevin's actually the loser who got himself kicked out of the Williams family?
Sherwin Blair said with a laugh. In the crowd, Kevin's associates turned to each other in confusion. Dalton then stared at Kevin. He knew that his spiritual brother couldn't be the bad guy in all of this. Something else was definitely going on. Officer Emmett's disappointment showed on her face. She really wanted to believe in Kevin's character, but these were some pretty strong accusations. She tried to keep an open mind about it. With an ethereal power, Kevin slowly shook his head. Ariana is mistaken. I have never done any of those things. This is all a big misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Is your grandfather framing you? Or is the whole Williams family framing you? Then, with a disgusted look on her face, Ariana sneered. If you didn't do anything, why were you driven out of your family? Taking a deep breath, Kevin thought to himself. Ariana is ridiculous. She is stating these false accusations without any real evidence. My greedy family has been publicly trying to make me the scapegoat for their failures. I'm tired of letting them take advantage of me. I'm going to put an end to things right now. He deserves to pay for his crimes, Ariana screamed at Kevin. With a powerful nod, Kevin gave a soft smile. Ariana, I'm sorry to say that you fell for my family's lies. What evidence do you have to support your accusation? Nadia looked at Kevin and then back at Ariana several times. She thought for a moment and then announced, I'm sorry, Ariana, but you'll have to calm down. Since there's nobody from the Williams family here right now, none of what you said can be verified. Then Nadia turned to Kevin and said, Well, the contest is over for this year. Come along with me. There were some things that she wanted to say to Kevin, but not in front of so many people. For one thing, as she stopped Ariana's dagger, she was aware of Kevin's strength. There was something special about him. The two of them walked over to the Herbalist Society's tent, which had been set up near the fountain. Kevin looked around the tent and wondered what Nadia wanted to discuss with him. Kevin, I'm asking you again. Would you like to be my student? Nadia walked over to the tent flap and looked outside while Kevin remained silent in thought. Then she continued to try to convince him. You really need to join our society. What everyone saw today will draw a lot of attention from some very powerful people, both good and bad. There are some evil individuals who won't let you go so easily, but we can protect you from them. Aren't you afraid of provoking them? Kevin asked in surprise. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into by revealing your talents like that. Nadia turned around and smiled gently. For a talented herbalist who can create a perfect primal pill in half an hour, you can't afford to offend the experts from all 10 major herbalism schools. What did you say? Kevin was shocked to hear Nadia call his pill perfect. Don't you think I can tell a good pill from a bad one? Nadia smiled enigmatically. I'm sorry, but I did it to protect you. To protect me? Kevin was obviously stunned and asked her, Or are you just protecting the schools? Nadia wasn't surprised to hear Kevin say that. I'm not sure you understand the consequences of what you did today. She took a deep breath and explained the danger Kevin was in. There are a lot of people who would do absolutely anything to have access to your skills. Their only goals are money and power. If you let them know your true talent, they'll try to win you over and then use you for their own evil plots. They'll take everything they can from you and then toss you aside. When Kevin heard this, his eyes grew wide. What Nadia was saying was absolutely right. Kevin could easily be on the run for the rest of his life. He'd probably have to get a new identity. Only for him, that would never be an option. He couldn't leave his wife Lily behind. Not after everything they'd been through. But if you choose to join the Herbalist Society, things will be totally different. Nobody would be able to touch you. Nadia said this confidently, and Kevin could see the sincerity in her eyes. Since Nadia was still young, she had some pretty lofty goals in the society. She was good at training students, and someone like Kevin could help her to move up in the ranks. But Kevin's reply pulled the rug right out from under her. I'm sorry, but I'm really not interested, Kevin answered her casually. Well, I can see that your mind is made up, so I won't keep you any longer. But I promise you one thing. Our door will always be open if you change your mind. Nadia smiled very genuinely and added, You can leave now. I'll arrange for someone to give you your prize for the contest. You'd better give it to Professor Colt. To be honest, I'm not interested in the top 3 awards at all. Kevin turned around and walked out of the tent. As Kevin walked away, Nadia's smile grew wider. What a wonderful student he would be. Kevin was extremely upset when he got home, and he spent the rest of the afternoon sitting on the sofa with Lily. Even though they were still figuring things out, she was still the most important person in the world to him. And on a day like today, he needed her comforting presence more than ever. After Lily had gone to bed, Kevin's phone rang. It was Spencer, his deputy from the Myriads organization. Why are you calling this late? Kevin asked. Spencer took a deep breath. Your plan went very smoothly, Enforcer. The Hill family has been removed from Detroit. We took over all their industries and businesses. Craig Hill was killed and we abducted all of his children. After thinking for a while, Spencer went on to say, Unfortunately, Nolan Hill somehow managed to get away. But you can rest assured that he probably won't make it through the night. Forget about it. The Hill family's been destroyed. Even if Nolan survives, he won't be able to do anything, Kevin said happily. Then he asked Spencer, Have you checked the family's property? Of course, Enforcer. You may not know it, but the Hill family had a pretty bad reputation in Detroit. They really made a lot of enemies. Plus, they were selling illegal goods, luxury knockoffs, things like that. Spencer was excited to tell Kevin everything he'd found out. Spencer, please remember that we have to draw the line somewhere. Now that we've taken control of the Hill family's business, we have to treat their employees and local residents really well so we can improve our image. Kevin paused for a moment and then gave Spencer another order. One more thing. Shut down all those illegal companies and get them producing more legitimate merchandise. I'll send you some help. Kevin excitedly hung up the phone and called Tyler Cook and a few other business associates. He wanted them to send some of their people to Detroit to straighten things out. The next morning, Kevin drove to campus. As soon as he entered the classroom, he realized that something was wrong. All the other students were glaring at him. But Kevin just ignored them and sat down next to Dalton. How's it going, bud? Have you recovered? Kevin asked with a smile.
Yeah, I'm strong as a horse, Dalton replied as he thumped his chest.
That's great. Kevin patted Dalton on the shoulder. Hey, I've got some good news for you. The Hill family was destroyed last night. The only one who got away was that Nolan.
That's fantastic.
Dalton slapped his hand hard on his desk, drawing everyone's attention.
So, Kevin, do you know who did it? That must have been something to see, Dalton said excitedly.
He hated the Hill family ever since Nolan had beaten him up and left him for dead. Unfortunately, even though the Steele family was really powerful, they wouldn't stand a chance against the Hills. Professor Colt walked into the classroom. Unfortunately, the lab still hadn't been cleaned up, so they could only have a lecture. But something about her didn't look right. She seemed a little depressed, probably because of what had happened the day before at the herbalism contest. Mike raised his hand and did his best to brown-nose her. Professor Colt, some students say they saw you at the contest yesterday. How'd you do? She didn't answer him, but just nodded her head slightly.
Who knew that Kevin could even make pills? Someone told me that he made a real mess of things.
Wade joined in to try to win points with the professor.
It was useless. He failed completely.
Luther trumpeted loudly so that everyone could hear him. Suddenly, they all burst out laughing while Mike looked at Kevin contemptuously. The reason why Mike had mentioned it wasn't to laugh at Professor Colt's failure, but to ridicule Kevin.
Everybody work hard so you don't end up like Kevin.
Luther didn't want to miss a chance to mock him either. Mike kept trying to flatter the professor.
I think Kevin cheated Professor Colt out of her chance to win. If he hadn't interfered, she would have done great.
Professor Colt quickly came to Kevin's defense. Okay, let's not make fun of Kevin anymore. Yesterday was all on me. I didn't control the temperature well, so my pill was destroyed. It had nothing to do with anyone else. In fact, Kevin even warned me about it, but I foolishly didn't listen to him." However, the students just thought she was covering up for Kevin.
"Professor Colt, we all know you're just being nice, but you don't have to do that. We're sure it was all Kevin's fault."
Mike smiled and tried to look understanding. Then Luther stood up and pointed at Kevin.
"You're a loser who will never amount to anything. Aren't you ashamed of what you did?"
Dalton didn't even give Kevin a chance to react. He rolled up his sleeves and scowled at Luther.
"What the hell is wrong with you? Kevin's never done anything to you. Why do you always bully him?"
After scolding Luther, Dalton glared at the rest of the class.
"You guys think you're so great? But if you had any ability, you'd enter a contest yourselves instead of just sitting around dumping on Kevin."
Seeing the students look around in shock, Kevin thought to himself, "I don't need to prove anything to my peers. I'll just wait for the next competition. Every time they underestimate me, it gives me a chance to prove them wrong." A few seconds later, Professor Colt cleared her throat. "Now that everyone is quiet, let's begin our class. Today I'll tell you about the preparation method for the metamorphosis pill, as well as its properties and the required ingredients and conditions." But before she could say anything else, a man knocked on the classroom door.
"Excuse me for the interruption. Are Professor Colt and Kevin Williams here today?"
Everyone turned their heads towards the doors like they were a bunch of owls. "I'm Professor Colt. Who are you?" She had no idea what this was about.
"Good morning, Professor. I was sent by President Alexander to give you an award. For some reason, yesterday the President mistakenly thought that there was something wrong with Kevin's pill. As it turns out, he was actually successful, and he's been recognized as the contest's overall champion. So President Alexander asked me to send both of you her apologies on behalf of the entire society."
After the man said this, he placed a box on the table at the front of the room and then he left. The whole classroom fell silent. Everyone was staring at the box on the table in front of Professor Colt. So not only had Kevin successfully made the pill, but he'd also impressed the judge. Mike's put-downs had been making Professor Colt feel worse and worse, but now she was starting to feel a whole lot better. Once she'd gotten over the shock and come back to her senses, the professor announced, "Since you prepared the pill, Kevin, you should get the award." "No, Professor. I was just your assistant. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have even been there. I think it's only right for you to accept it." Kevin answered with a smile as he thought to himself, "My ambitions are far more important than a silly award. I'll let Professor Colt accept this reward so that I can focus on more crucial things." Professor Colt realized she couldn't win, so she gave in and accepted the award. The rest of the class was pretty boring compared to the big news. She did her best to talk about the metamorphosis pill, but the students had a hard time concentrating. When the class was about to end, Penny suddenly turned around and looked at Kevin. "I had no idea you were such a superb herbalist." She knew that Austin Swift had made a reset pill, but the man who dropped off the award said that Kevin was the champion, which means that he'd done even better than Austin. "Well, I'm just a beginner," Kevin answered modestly. "Can I ask you to make a pill for me?" Penny hesitated a little, but it was really important for her. "Do you need some herbal meds?" Kevin was a little surprised. For a family like Penny's, what pills couldn't just be bought? Why did she need him? "One of my best friends has a rare disease and needs something to cure it. But you wouldn't have much to do. We already know what she needs and found the recipe. If you can prepare it for my friend, you can keep the recipe." Penny thought that might entice Kevin to accept. He wondered what it could be. The Sutherland family had gone to a lot of trouble to track down the recipe, so this could be interesting. "That's not necessary. If I make a pill for your friend, you can just treat me to a meal," Kevin replied casually. To increase his skills, it was essential that he had access to every new formula. "Are you so confident? Don't you need to ask me the name of the pill?" Penny asked in surprise. "To tell you the truth, Penny, there isn't an herbal med that I can't make." Kevin may have sounded like he was boasting, but he really felt confident that he could do it. Penny didn't say anything more, but she took a long look at Kevin and decided that he wasn't as useless as everyone said.
"Wow, Kev, you're really good. You've even got Penny asking you for favors."
Dalton put his arm around Kevin's shoulder and said,
"Any chance I could join you?"
"What do you think? Of course you can come along." Kevin shook his head. Sometimes he just didn't understand his friend.
"Then we've got a deal. Don't leave without me,"
Dalton said with a laugh. "Dalton Steele, what are you doing? The class hasn't ended yet." Professor Colt scolded Dalton but didn't say a word to Kevin.
"I don't get it. We were both talking. Why did she yell at me and not you?" Dalton whispered.
Kevin smiled and shook his head again. He'd learned it wasn't worth it to argue with Dalton. He pulled out his phone and started to play, making sure that he did a good job of hiding it from the professor. After school, Kevin took Lily back home. Then he got a phone call from Penny. He got back in his car and drove to the address in the western suburbs that Penny had texted him. When Kevin pulled up in front of the mansion, Penny walked out to greet him. Kevin was a little confused. "So what kind of pill do you want me to make? Did we have to come all the way out here to do it?" "After you prepare the pill, you can grab any snack you like," Penny offered. "But this isn't the dinner I promised you. We'll go somewhere else for that. I bought this place to hang out with my friends." When he heard Penny say that, Kevin stared at her and thought to himself, so she bought an entire mansion just to hang out? Is this how her family spends its money? "Come inside, Kevin. Some of my friends are here enjoying themselves." Penny turned around and walked back inside. Kevin hesitated for a moment, wondering what exactly was going on. Taking a deep breath, he whispered to himself, "I hope that this new formula is worth it."
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.